The thing that I really want people to start to ask themselves is it really anxiety, or could it be one or more of these 8 unpleasant feelings that I actually really don't want to experience and don't want to express? And if I had the awareness of that, then it tends to dissipate and go, oh, it's the sadness or the disappointment I just don't want to express.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred sober living option to help AA newcomers stay sober during their first year in the program. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Let's get clear on one thing. We believe that a relapse or a slip is not a part of recovery. And that's exactly why this podcast is dedicated to you or any loved one you know in their first year of striving to live a clean and sober life. The purpose of this podcast is to come clean with all of the misinformation that's out there about recovery, addiction treatment, mental illness, and the strategies to stay sober in general. So if you believe you're in the right place, or if you know someone who is struggling with addiction, it's my privilege to share this podcast with you. Now, I have no idea if you and I have ever met, but what I do know is that AA saved my life. And I also know that to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, it's not just about stopping your drinking, drugging, gambling, sexual indiscretions, or any other addiction you may have struggled with or suffered from. Because at Camelback Recovery, we believe that sobriety can and should be fun. And look, any recovery process is not easy. It is challenging. It can sometimes be annoying. And for the most of us, it is often difficult to stay on the path. But here's the good news. The self-awareness you gain from listening to this podcast, especially if you are in your first year of recovery, will help you make better choices, which will ultimately lead you to living a kick-ass sober life. Visit camelbackrecovery.com to learn more about our treatment strategies for alcoholism, drug addiction, or mental illness. And we even offer recovery coaching so that you can enjoy the freedom and happiness you've always searched for. Today, we're going to talk about feelings. What if I told you that the anxiety you're feeling might not even be real anxiety? Rather, what you're feeling was just a way to cover up potential unpleasant feelings. In other words, anxiety is a way to avoid. And what if I told you that anxiety was also a result of bottling up feelings as opposed to expressing them outwardly to others? Today, I'm here with Dr. Joan Rosenberg, and we're going to talk about difficult feelings and how to get through them. Dr. Rosenberg is a featured expert in the critically acclaimed documentary films I Am and the Hidden Epidemic, along with Dr. Daniel Amen. And she's been seen on CNN's American Morning Show, OWN, and PBS stations nationally, along with other appearances across TV, radio, and print media. She's the founder and creator of Emotional Mastery, the only systematized emotional training and conditioning approach that teaches laypersons and mental health clinicians alike how to foster unwavering emotional strength, self-confidence, and self-esteem. She serves on John Assaraf's scientific advisory board, has one patent in performance skill development, is a published author of Mean Girls, Meaner Women, and is published in professional books and psychology journals. Joan, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here with me today.
That's exciting to join you, Tim. I'm all in.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, this is great. I've been looking forward to this because feelings, we're going to talk about feelings. We're going to talk about emotions, which is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about. People don't like talking about feelings. People would rather stuff it. People would rather talk about the weather.
Right. The weather or the latest TV show or movie.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Or whatever's going on in the news.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So your work is being considered the how-to path, developing confidence. What prompted you to start down this journey in the first place?
You know what? I didn't have any.
Okay.
I mean, the truth be told, the way I started early in life was to be a very shy, sensitive child and quite introverted. Obviously, that comes with the shyness. And the key thing was, as I grew up, I would look over at my peers and I would see them hanging together, laughing, the whole thing, and that sense of belonging I didn't have. And so feeling different, feeling like I didn't belong, all that was present for me, including being bullied. So it was like, what is this? What's going on? And the thing that struck me is that what it felt like my peers had that I didn't was confidence. So really, I was always from very early on in search of, what helped people to be confident. What was that?
What is your definition of confidence?
At this point in time, that really evolved as I got into my work as a psychologist. At this point in time, the way I look at confidence is that it's the deep sense that you can handle the emotional outcome. And I'd underline those words, the deep sense that you can handle the emotional outcome of whatever you face or whatever you pursue. Mm-hmm. It means that there's this quality of can-do-itiveness.
Yeah, I can do it. And confidence means you feel that you can do it.
And it's internal. It's a sense that you can really do something.
How does someone develop the confidence?
Well, for me, it's a great question. For me, I would say there's at least 5 really, really important things that go into this. And I would, again, my thing was I was looking for a how-to, or even in being a professional in the mental health field, we're always telling people, well, you need confidence, you need confidence, you need confidence. But when I got in the field, it's like, well, then how do you get somebody to do that? Right? Yeah. And nobody was telling me that. So part of the way I would think about this, Tim, is that my approach is really the how-to. Mm-hmm. So the how-to would involve, to me, at least 5 major things. There's other things beyond that, but at least 5 major ones. Okay. And so one part of it is that you need to be able to lean into, experience, and move through whatever feelings you're experiencing, pleasant and definitely unpleasant, and especially unpleasant. Mm-hmm. The second is you need to be able to express yourself, again, across the board, pleasant and unpleasant, and that it comes with relative ease for you to express yourself. The third has to do with being able to take action. That you're willing to go out and take risks and take action to get things done, whatever it requires. And with speaking and with taking action, most of us think that we'll be confident and then we'll go do those things. Right. Except it works in reverse. Right. It's actually you go do those things. So you speak, and as you're speaking or through speaking, you gain confidence. And the same is true with action taking. You take the risk and you take action. Or take action, and then you develop the confidence, right? Yeah. So especially if stuff doesn't work out. And then the last 2 have to do with ending harsh self-criticism, and the final one is accepting compliments. Those are the 5 major elements to developing confidence and building confidence.
Okay, and so speaking to just taking action, right? It's kind of like you have to be willing to stumble. You have to be willing to fall. And then once you stumble and fall, you kind of realize stumbling and falling isn't that bad.
Correct.
And so that's where there's the sense of, because in one of the things that I read is people have this thought in their mind of what is going to happen or what it's going to be like if they stumble, if they fall, if they don't follow through, or it's avoiding the emotions that are going to happen as a result.
Right. Yes. Most people go, well, I'm afraid to do X. Yeah. And whatever the activity is. And my thing is that it's not so much necessarily that they're afraid of the activity itself. Mm-hmm. What they're more concerned about and they're more afraid of is the undesired emotional outcome. Right. Of taking the risk. So I might be embarrassed. I might be disappointed. I might get angry. I might get sad, whatever it might be. And so the person, if I'm the one that's afraid to take the risk, is more typically not afraid of the risk itself, the activity itself. Instead, one is more afraid of the undesired emotional outcome of what will happen if I take that risk.
And even the thought of that undesirable emotional outcome is a reason for someone to drink or drug or find a solution to feel better.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. One can absolutely use that excuse.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I tried it and I embarrassed myself.
Yeah. It's the restless, irritable, discontent feeling that leads to the drink and the drug.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah. I don't want to experience what I'm experiencing, so I'm going to check out.
Right.
Yeah.
So you believe that handling difficult feelings is the foundation of feeling confident, and you use a formula to help people achieve that. So what is the formula?
What's the formula? So a body of my work is centered around helping people lean into and accept and deal with unpleasant feelings. Because for me, your ability to handle unpleasant feelings is it's the foundation of confidence.
Right.
So the formula is 1 choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds.
Okay.
So the one choice
is that the basis of your book?
That is the basis of the book. Bless you for that. Yes, 90 seconds to light you up. Yes. Yep. And so the one choice is choosing into awareness as opposed to avoidance. And you already named avoidance, but I'll go back over it. So what does awareness look like? Awareness is an openness to being as aware of and in touch with as much of your moment-to-moment experience as possible, no matter what it is, pleasant or unpleasant. Okay. Avoidance, obviously, one major form of avoidance is drug use. But you mentioned sex. You might have mentioned porn. You might have mentioned shop. I mean, you could mention shopping. Yep. You could mention food. You could mention, frankly, having feelings about having feelings. Like if I'm angry, then I'm disappointed. That could be a way to distract. So I think in fact, in that book, I think I identified like 35 different ways to check out. So,
lots of ways. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Absolutely. So that means that avoidance is anything that is distracting, disconnecting, or ignoring, anything that shuts us out of an experience. So what do I want people to do? Obviously, I want people to be aware. I don't want people to avoid. The second part of it is 8 feelings. So 1 choice, 8 feelings. And again, the body of my work that's centered around these 8 unpleasant feelings. And the feelings are sadness, shame, helplessness, sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. And I know that the first question, Tim, that often comes when I even name these 8 feelings is like why these 8? And it's why these 8. That the reason for why these 8 is because they're the most common everyday and spontaneous reactions to things that we have a reaction to, that we don't want things to turn out that way, or we believe that we need them to turn out a different way. So that these are the first reactions we have when stuff doesn't go our way.
Right.
So it's really the everydayness of them. And then the 90 seconds piece is, and
I want to go back. We'll go back to the 8 feelings because I've heard and I've learned a lot about that. Ken Richardson, who's the founder of Coda, according to him, there's 7 primary feelings, and I've actually started doing a little more research on it. It's like everybody has their opinion of what the primary feelings are, and it's like they're all, there's little variations of them. So
right. Well, primary feelings also, I think, they date back to Darwin.
Okay.
Because I believe it was Darwin, or something like that. But there were 7 that were identified, which include surprise and disgust and some other ones. But I don't. What I'm really using are the ones that I consider the most common everyday reactions.
Okay. Ken Richardson, I remembered his 7 primary feelings being anger, pain, loneliness, guilt, shame, fear, and joy. And all of the other feelings are variations of those primary feelings.
So it's that, which is interesting because some people in the feeling community would say that anger is a secondary reaction. And at this point in my life, I don't even consider guilt a feeling. I consider it a thought. Okay. And
guilt and shame may have been, I'm not 100% on the primary feelings, to be quite honest. It was many years ago, but it's something like that. I just remember there was only one positive emotion, which was joy, which means that every other positive emotion is a variation of joy.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we could probably get into very lengthy discussions about what really belongs.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So moving on to the next step.
Right. So the one we've got the one choice in the 8 feelings. So awareness, and then being able to handle these 8 feelings. And then the third part of it is when again, in my early work as a psychologist, the other big question for me was, if confidence was, how does somebody develop confidence, was my childhood and adolescent endeavor that went into adulthood. When I went into psychology, it became, well, what made it so difficult for people to handle unpleasant feelings? Because I would watch people struggle, and that if they weren't handling unpleasant feelings, they didn't feel capable of handling life, or handling what they considered life throwing at them. So then my search was like, well, what made it so difficult? And a lot of neuroscience research started to come out in the late 90s and into the early 2000s, especially, and it's flourished since then. But drawing a few pieces from it, the one understanding with this 90 seconds piece is that most of us come to know what we feel emotionally through bodily sensation. So, for instance, the example I always use is embarrassment. So if I were embarrassed, you would see the redness in my face, probably, or even in my neck and chest. And I would feel the heat into all of that as the bodily sensation. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. And Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who wrote the book My Stroke of Insight, talked about that when a feeling gets triggered, there's a rush of biochemicals into the bloodstream that actually activate those bodily sensations.
Okay.
And they flush out of the bloodstream in roughly an upper limit of 90 seconds. So that's the 90 seconds piece. So what dawned on me, Tim, is that it wasn't that we didn't want to feel the whole range of what we felt. What made feeling unpleasant feelings, or sometimes pleasant feelings, so difficult is that we didn't want to feel the bodily sensation that helped us know what we were feeling emotionally. Yeah. So when we drink or do any of those other distracting things, it's to get away from the bodily sensation that's helping us know what we're feeling emotionally.
It's to numb.
It's to numb, but it's to numb the experience, the bodily experience. I was always telling people, ride the wave, ride the wave, ride the wave, but I wasn't understanding why I was saying it until these two pieces came out. So then what I could say is, in order to lean into any feeling, it's your ability to ride short-lived, up to 90-second, this 90-second range, short-lived bodily sensation waves that help you know what you're feeling emotionally. And most people will go, well, I can do 90 seconds. Yeah. Right? And
90 seconds is a long time.
Well, but it's not as long as a week or a month or a year. Right? Now, do people have the experience of lingering feelings? Yes. And I should make a caveat here right away, which is that the trauma, for instance, encodes differently in the brain than everyday experience. So what I'm really talking about here is, I'm not necessarily talking about traumatic experience. I'm talking about our everyday experiences that we can deal with in an ongoing basis. So then the one choice, I'm going to lean into awareness. I'm going to be able to handle 8 unpleasant feelings, the ones I've named, and I'm going to understand that what it takes to deal with those 8 unpleasant feelings is to be able to ride one or more short-lived bodily sensation waves that actually represent the feelings in my body, in order to kind of lean in and be able to tolerate and handle, experience, move through those. Yeah.
Well, as they say, this too shall pass.
Absolutely.
And it's like you're gonna feel a certain way for a minute, 90 seconds, whether it's happiness, sadness.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is.
No,
this too shall pass. It's always you're always going to feel different in literally 90 seconds.
Right. And I will say that many feelings pass in a shorter time frame than the 90 seconds. So
and I love that step one is awareness, because I just think about being active in my addiction, I was oblivious. I lacked awareness. I didn't really know like how I was feeling or how other people were feeling. And so it's tuning into that awareness is a great first step. I like that you brought that up. Okay. Now I think we're on step 4, right?
We're on step 4. What's step 4? There were 3 steps. There was 3 steps. So
there's 3 steps. Why is it hard to handle unpleasant feelings?
Yeah. 1 choice, 8 feelings, and then 90 seconds.
Okay.
So the essence, the method piece of it is just to understand your writing short-lived bodily sensation waves, and your willingness to do that then allows you to handle the 8 feelings, or more.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's it. 3 steps.
It's just those 3 steps, and that you can lean into unpleasant feelings day in and day out.
Yeah. It also makes me think of life is easy if you live it the hard way and hard if you live it the easy way. And meaning it's easy when you're willing to have hard conversations. If you're not willing to have hard conversations, life is really hard.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I've learned to do. And before I learned how to live and before I learned how to have hard conversations, I would way rather turn into an asshole and sabotage a relationship without actually having which was way more hurtful. And today it's just a conversation.
Exactly.
And it's just that unpleasant feeling that I didn't want to face, but I've learned how to do it. And it's way better. I mean,
Right. Well, speaking up is the next major step in terms of building confidence or resilience, or in my mind, kind of leading an authentic life. And the thing here for me is that I always like to say, Tim, that difficulty speaking up is not a speaking problem.
Right.
You got to think about it.
Is that an avoidance problem?
It's a difficulty difficulty speaking up is not a speaking problem. Difficulty speaking up is a difficulty with unpleasant feeling problem.
Yeah, so true. If you frame it that way and you think about it that way, it makes sense.
The reason we avoid conversations is because not only do we not want to necessarily experience the feelings we are experiencing to go into the conversation, we don't necessarily want we don't want to have to deal with the discomfort of someone else's emotional discomfort, the same 8 unpleasant feelings.
Right.
So we don't go after the conversation at all. I don't want to deal with my unpleasant feelings, and I don't want to deal with your unpleasant feelings. But in order to have a conversation, that's what it takes.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that people think that feelings last forever. They think that a feeling is going to last a long time when really it's only going to last 90 seconds. And I said, hey, 90 seconds actually kind of in the moment, 90 seconds can feel like an eternity.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I just did, I do ice baths and they're cold. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it's only a couple of minutes, but that couple of minutes seems like eternity. So what's your take on people believing that their feelings last weeks or months or years?
So the deal with that, again, I in the book, I talked about 3 ways, but I would add another 2 to that at this point. Mm-hmm. So one is, if we think about people who've been together for a very long period of time, that let's say a death occurs and people have been married for 45 years or 60 years or whatever it is. Then what's ended up happening in the brain is that the brain has established deeply embedded neural tracks. So it's like it's used to a pattern, it's used to a routine. And now all of a sudden that routine no longer exists. Okay. Right? So one of the reasons that something feels like it lingers is because in the brain has actually got that deeply embedded pathway for it to follow that you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take new routine and novel experiences to replay enough times to replace whatever that deeply embedded neural track is. So I would say that's one reason it feels like stuff lingers, because it's so familiar and literally built into your life.
Right.
The second reason I mentioned, and we already mentioned, was around trauma. Trauma encodes in the brain differently. So it actually encodes in a different area of the brain. And so the way those memories can get pulled up is different than sort of everyday, the way we process everyday experiences. So that's a second reason. A third is we try to shut it down. We go, oh, well, I'm just not going to think about that. Well, if I tell you not to think of an elephant that is yellow and green striped, then in order to not think about that elephant with yellow and green stripes, you have to think about that elephant with yellow and green stripes to not think about it. It never works. So, right?
Yeah, no work.
So it gets paradoxical, and you actually think about the thing you don't want to be thinking about more. So that doesn't work, but it creates the quality of lingering.
Mm-hmm.
So that's thought suppression. The fourth is just repeating a given memory or a given thought, because with that memory of thought, you're going to bring up everything that's attached to it. So if there are feelings attached to that particular thought or memory, then the more you repeat it, the more you're going to keep on bringing up that same thing. Then it's going to feel like stuff is lingering over a long period of time. And then the last, interestingly enough, is my bias is that if you engage in harsh self-criticism, that creates an experience of lingering feeling.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is that basically if you put energy into it, it's going to linger.
Yes.
Which is similar to anything you put energy into, what you put energy into grows.
Yes. What we feed grows. Yes.
Yeah. What we feed grows. And so speaking to addiction, my experience is that the people that focus on not drinking, like, I'm just going to not drink today. I'm just going to not drink today. I'm not going to do a drug today. I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to do it. Those are the people that get drunk. The people that stay sober are the people that focus on living a new life. It's not the daunting, like, oh my gosh, I got to stay clean and sober. That's not it. What they focus on is living an amazing life, living a new life, doing different things, new hobbies, new interests, like everything is different. And it's not like, oh my gosh, I just got to quit doing drugs.
Correct.
It's
correct.
It's the same thing, right?
Absolutely. Because you're replacing what was routine with new and novel experiences, and you replace that enough times, now your brain goes, oh, I have a different path to travel, and it goes down that path instead of the drinking path, right? Or whatever it might be. So yes, absolutely. You want to, and when you're caught in, I don't want to do something, you're actually instructing the brain to do the very thing. So a lot of people, interesting, the brain doesn't process no's and nots very well.
Uh-huh.
So if I say I'm not going to drink, then the cue to the brain is I'm drinking.
I'm drinking, yeah, because that's what you're putting energy into.
Right. So then the focus needs to go on. My thing is that I always want people to state, to think, to speak, and to take action in the direction they want their results to be.
Right.
To think, to speak, and to take action in the direction you want your results to be. So that means stating things in the positive. And so in this case, it's like, rather than saying, I'm not going to drink today, it's saying something like, you know what? It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm going to go take a bike ride. And after that, I'm going to go visit my friend Tim. And after that, I'm going to go do 3 hours of work on X, Y, and Z. And I'm looking forward to dinner with another friend.
Yeah. I'm going to have an amazing day today.
Right.
I mean, like, it's not, I'm not going to drink today.
Correct.
I'm going to have an amazing day today.
Right.
So now that leads me into my next question. Having emotional strength is part of confidence as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how does one develop emotional strength?
Well, interestingly, I have kind of two elements to emotional strength. One of them we've already begun to talk about, and that is that you feel more capable in the world. So think of it as feeling capable is part of emotional strength, and that is tied to your ability to experience and move through those 8 unpleasant feelings. So feeling capable, I can do those 8 unpleasant feelings.
Yep. Confidence.
Right.
Yep.
That's one part. The second, interestingly, is what I call being resourceful. So what is being resourceful? It's actually about us accepting kind of the dependent side of our nature, which means that we're in touch with our needs and our limitations. And when we're in touch with our needs and limitations, it moves us to a place where we can ask for help. So the second part of emotional strength is being resourceful. And being resourceful, if I make it really simple, being resourceful is asking for help.
Right.
So being able to handle 8 unpleasant feelings and asking for help are the two things that I think create the sense of emotional strength.
Knowing when I need help and being willing to ask for help.
You got it.
Okay.
So that means that puts asking for help in the category of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to awareness also.
It does. I mean, I have a silly little story that fits for this if you're interested.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I was probably in my early 20s, and I was traveling alone. Nobody knew where I was. And I think I was traveling to like a city like Seattle at the time. That's what I remember. And it was old enough that there were no cell phones, and it was the time of still paper maps.
Okay.
So I was
the Thomas Guide or whatever.
It might have been one of those AAA, open up the big map.
Yeah.
So, but there I was trying to figure out my location. I wasn't doing so well spatially. And then I started to feel really vulnerable. I was like, oh my God, nobody knows where I am. What if something bad happens? I started to launch into this self-talk. And then what dawned on me is that if I were concerned, then I could go far enough in terms of driving, even if I were lost, stop at the next grocery store or stop at the next gas station or stop someplace and then ask somebody for help. And the moment that dawned on me, I totally calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, okay, I got this. Yeah. But the I got this didn't happen because I was doing it by myself. That sense of can-do-itiveness, that sense of confidence that I can handle it came about because I was willing to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want people to see that asking for help is a huge element that contributes to confidence and a sense of emotional strength.
Which that goes back to anxiety when people are not willing to speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. If we want to dive down that path of anxiety.
Yeah, let's go down the anxiety path. Okay. I think this is a good segue.
Yeah, no, I'm really not a big fan of the words fear and anxiety, despite the kind of times we may be living in now. And do I understand that there is greater fear and greater anxiety? Yes. So I'll acknowledge that they exist as entities, but in general, what I would love people to consider is a different way to look at that. So the truth is, fear psychology defines as kind of danger in the moment right now. If you're not in danger in the moment right now, I would actually rather you not use the word fear, because you kind of activate by using the word, you sort of activate that state in your body. So,
which by the way, I just want to note. So Ken Richardson, again, he talks about fear being on a spectrum.
Okay.
Fear's on a spectrum, and it's concern, worry, anxiety. Let's see here, panic, terror. Like those are kind of the different variations of fear.
Oh, sure.
The only healthy form of fear is concern. Everything else is toxic.
I can probably roll with most of that. Yep.
Yeah. That's his opinion. So yeah. I mean, I like your the way you're talking about it. It's just a different way to kind of, and I'm like, okay, because that was what I was taught, and now reading some of the stuff that you've written about, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, no. So fear is danger in the moment right now. If we look at fear as danger in the moment right now, or then and you're not in danger, then let's have you use a different word. If you're in danger, then absolutely, I want your fear reaction, because that'll help you move to action, right? So so fight, flight, that sort of idea. So I'm not taking fear away. It's just that I want if you're not in danger, don't use the word, because it activates that state. So
and actually also, so fear, fake evidence appearing real, right? Is another way to look at it. Yes, is another way to look at it. Yeah. And normally that's the case. Has been my experience.
Right. Yes. So then what would be the next thing people would say? Well, then I'm anxious. It's like, okay, great. The truth is, as a clinician, if I were to ask 10 people what anxiety meant to them, I would typically get 8 to 10 different answers.
Yeah.
So the reality is that idea, and what's anxiety? It's diffuse concern or diffuse apprehension that something, a bad or a negative event is going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Fits the situation, except I would get 8 to 10 different definitions. So it's too vague for me. I don't know what people really mean when they say that they're anxious.
Okay.
So it's not, so for me, it's not useful. And what I have found over time, Tim, is that the first thing people are really describing when they say they're anxious is that they feel vulnerable. There's this sense that they could get hurt. Well, what is hurt going to look like? In general, it's one or more of the 8 feelings.
Right.
So, okay, so anxiety, it actually might be better classified as vulnerability. And vulnerability means that I might experience the other 7 feelings, right? Because vulnerability is one of the 8.
Right.
Then now all of a sudden I've named it more specifically, and it's weird. It just starts to calm people down, right? So the first thing to think about is, am I really feeling vulnerable as opposed to anxious? Do I have this sense that I could get hurt? Oh, I'm anticipating I might feel embarrassed, or I might feel disappointed, or but I can handle that. Oh, okay. Then if you're aware that you can handle it, then the anxiety kind of dissipates. It just goes away.
Right.
You're aware it's vulnerability, and you also have the knowledge that you can handle this undesired emotional outcome. You feel capable. It's like, okay, I can go do this.
Yeah.
Right. The other part of this is that what I have found is if it's not vulnerability, then it's one or more of the other 7 feelings. So there's many instances, but this ties into yet another layer.
Right.
There's many instances where somebody doesn't want to experience and does not want to express what it is they're feeling towards somebody. So if I'm disappointed and angry at you for something that did or did not happen, but I don't want to tell you that I'm angry and disappointed that that thing did or did not happen, and I'm going to hold back and act like things are just peachy keen, then inside I'm going to be feeling the anxiety, but the anxiety is not anxiety, it's anger and disappointment.
So when I think of not wanting to tell somebody something because of the way they're going to react,
yes,
I think
the
of
way you
being,
anticipate they're going to react.
Yeah, I think of being in fear.
So our fear. So now we're talking about vulnerability and anxiety.
Right.
It's not fear. It's vulnerability.
Okay. Which is they're all kind of different variations of a similar
of a theme. Yeah. Think of a continuum again.
On the continuum, it's the same feeling, and it's like, okay, can we associate anxiety with a physical or bio? Or
oh, absolutely. Does it have a bodily sensation to it? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. People will talk about butterflies in their stomach. They'll talk about tingling. They'll talk about all sorts of things. Yes. Does it have a biological correlate? But the thing that I really want people to start to ask themselves is it really anxiety, or could it be one or more of these 8 unpleasant feelings that I actually really don't want to experience and don't want to express? And if I had the awareness of that, then it tends to dissipate and go, oh, it's the sadness or the disappointment I just don't want to express.
Yeah, I love the process, and I think it makes it really simple for people. It's 1, the awareness; 2, which of the 8 feelings.
Yeah. So my thing is, the way to approach it, if you really want to work with it and play with it. So let me give 2 definitions, and then let me give you kind of the approach. So other ways to look at anxiety is that anxiety is a cover for the 8 unpleasant feelings.
Okay.
It's an umbrella. It's just covering up the 8 feelings. The second way to look at it is that anxiety is unexperienced and unexpressed feeling. So then how do I change up my experience of anxiety if I'm somebody that would identify myself as an anxious person? Then I would say you remove any word that sounds like fear, apprehension, and anxiety. You just take those words out of your language. And instead try to notice whether you're feeling vulnerable or one or more of the other 7 feelings instead, and notice what happens when you do that.
What should they notice happen?
That they feel calmer and they're more in touch with the actual feeling that's going on. And then they can get clear about whether they want to actually follow through and express what's going on.
Okay, so let's talk about speaking up. We started talking about speaking up.
We did.
People are always being encouraged to speak up or be assertive, yet so many people have a hard time doing so.
Right.
What stands in the way of a person's ability to speak up with greater ease?
Well, again, circling back, for me, it's that I don't want to handle my emotional discomfort or handle the discomfort of your emotional discomfort, which is what a conversation requires, or difficult or challenging conversations require. And that's why people don't speak up. Again, it's not a speaking problem. It's I don't want to deal with unpleasant feeling problem. And Tim, it cuts across not just the unpleasant side of the experience, it cuts across the pleasant side too. Because if I want to tell you how much I like you, how much I want to spend more time with you, how much I love you, then I have to be vulnerable. Again, one of the 8, I have to be vulnerable enough to be willing to say that to you and to experience the possibility that it's not reciprocated, which might lead me into disappointment or sadness or embarrassment or whatever. But that it also cuts across. So it cuts across pleasant and unpleasant feelings in terms of what I'm talking about here.
And I think of when I say I love you to someone, you can say I love you, or you can say I love you, man. When you say I love you, man, it kind of waters it down.
Absolutely.
And it makes it's not as vulnerable. It's not as genuine. It's less risky.
Right. That's correct.
To say it that way.
Absolutely. So my thing then with speaking is that, again, speaking is not a speaking problem. Speaking is, I don't want to deal with the unpleasant feeling problem. So how do we get over it? Same thing. It's understanding that you put yourself in the position of feeling vulnerable. You have a sense that you can handle the emotional outcome, even if it's an undesired one. What's that going to look like? One or more of the other 7 feelings. So you go into conversations going, I can handle the unpleasant feelings if they arise, and I'll just lean into I'll ride those bodily sensation waves of those feelings if they occur. Right. And what's also interesting to me here, Tim, is that I think we get lost on this idea of kind of the goal of speaking up, because I think most of us see the reason we speak up is to get what we want. And I will tell you, earlier in my psychology career, that was kind of my mindset. And now I don't think of that. I think of getting what we want as the benefit of speaking up, but it's surely not the goal of speaking up.
What would you say is the goal of speaking up?
It's to grow us so that every time I use my voice in a particular way to connect with people, to set a limit, to ask for what I want, to express an idea, to whatever it might be, it's evolving me as a person. And now I see the reason for speaking up is to grow us, and the benefit of speaking up is getting what we want.
And I would add to that, I would say that the benefit of speaking up is also being a good example and being of service and showing other people how to be responsible, not be a victim.
Yep.
There's so much more. There's so much more to it than just, It's not all about Tim. It's about all of the people that are around me.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
And as a parent, I mean, I just went, I think about my sister, and I think about her kids, and I think about, they just went through some really tough times. And I just think, like, those kids are watching their mother and how their mother is either speaking up or not speaking up, and making it through a difficult situation and just leaning into it. Because if her kids see her lean into the situation, lean into the conversations, then they see how it's done. It's like, okay, that's how it's done. I can do it.
Yeah.
Which leads back to the confidence.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And that's what develops the confidence, is finding that you can say the things that you need to say and deal with the emotional outcome of it, and then being able to go, oh, that's strengthened me. Once you realize that you can make your way through difficult stuff, that's really the thing that's the strengthening element of building confidence.
Yeah, it's like your comfort zone grows. And it's like every time you do something a little bit harder, a little bit outside of your comfort zone grows. And then you do something else that's outside of your comfort zone and your comfort zone grows.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
And then, yeah. So moving on to the next thing here, I want to talk about grief. Okay. So you say grief is the pathway to forgiveness. So I want you to talk to me about that for a little bit. I know
this one's a little bit more complex, and this one has to do with a person's willingness to kind of make sense of difficult life experiences. And the key here for me is that, first of all, is understand what I'm describing as grief. If we have time to get into disguised grief, but what I think that making sense process is. And so for grief for me are at the minimum include the feelings of sadness, helplessness, anger, and disappointment.
Okay.
So an easy way to remember it is think shad instead of sad. Okay. Sadness, helplessness, anger, and disappointment. And those, at least at a minimum, comprise grief. And that when we go through difficult life experiences, that in order to make our way through them and actually be able to kind of put them behind us or let them be part of the narrative of who we are, we need to make sense of the impact and meaning that those experiences had on us across time. So making sense equals understanding the impact or meaning or the influence any given life experience had on us at the time in which the experience occurred or the situation occurred or event occurred, as we aged, and then now. So the bottom line question here is, who did I become because of what I went through?
Okay.
But we want to, in my mind, it's doing it kind of through an arc of time. Ultimately, then it's understanding kind of the answers to those questions, then extracting the good, if there's some good that may have come from it. And that's the point at which we reach forgiveness.
So let's say, for example, I have a friend, him and his girlfriend just broke up, and he's grieving and he's hurting, and he doesn't, this is not what he wanted.
Correct.
So explain to me how he should be processing, how he can get to the other side.
In this case, if we're talking about a more immediate thing, the thing I'm talking about have to do with kind of experiences that have happened, kind of probably less recent. But in terms of current grief, then it means staying present to those four feelings. So in this case, it might involve crying a lot. It might be, and profound grief has spontaneous crying that comes with it. She feels like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah. And so it means be willing to step in and to just let yourself move through those waves of sadness or those waves of disappointment. And it also means staying, in this case, that kind of grief, it means being well connected to other people so that you're not entirely alone in the process. Somebody else can bear witness to the pain that you're going through. And because you're connected to someone else, just that connection can be soothing in and of itself. Or they can help you make sense of what took place or what might be going on. And then over time, it may be, again, building new routines, but was going to something that may occur, and new connections, new routines, and also there's some. What was the other piece? There was another one that, again, learning. In this case, it's also learning what might have contributed to, if it wasn't an actual death, but it was a separation or like a loss of a relationship.
Which is similar to it. I mean, it's like you lose a relationship, you lose a job, you lose, like, it's all something is no more. Right.
Exactly. So it's dealing with those feelings of loss that are tied to loss. And then it's again, who do I want, how do I want to go through this? You can still ask those same kinds of questions, which actually contributes to resilience. So it might be, you know what, this is damn hard, but I'm going to go through this anyway. I know I'm going through it. It's damn hard. So who am I going to be in this situation? And what can I learn from this situation? So you can actually ask yourself questions that prompt more resilience for you to actually move yourself through the experience of grief like that. Or you can have attitudes that can help you stay through and move your way through grief by even going, you know what, I've been through breakups before, and I've been through job losses before. I've handled it before. I can persevere and I can handle it again. So there's ways that we can talk to ourselves. There's ways that we can think, and ways of being with people that can all make a difference in terms of helping us be more resilient in those kinds of situations.
Right. It's the human connection. It's not isolating, because when we're dealing with loss and we're isolating, that's not helpful.
No, it actually makes everything worse.
I don't want to talk to anybody if I'm grieving. I want to isolate. That's what I want to do. I know that that's when I need to pick up the phone. That's when I need to go to a meeting. That's what I need. I know that that's when I need to go and be around people.
Right. There's the notion of contrary. Right. The notion of contrary action. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we're coming up on the end of this interview. We only got a couple more minutes. Is there a question you wanted me to ask you today? If so, what would that question be?
No, you've done exceptional, Tim. No, we're good. We're good. There's lots of stuff to cover. So
there's a lot. We could go on for hours. Okay. Where can people find you? How can they learn more about you?
drjoanrosenberg.com is probably the easiest. Or if people want to see there's Amazon, the book is on Amazon, or I should say Barnes & Noble, or any place you get books. And if you just punch in my name, there's countless different there's TED Talks and other things that I've done. So, but drjoanrosenberg.com would be the starting point.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that does it for our time with Dr. Joan Rosenberg. If you learned something, or if you heard something that resonates with you, please share in the comment section of YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you're listening. And every comment counts, and what you share could resonate with someone else that is struggling and potentially save them and save their life. So go ahead, share the one thing that resonated with you in the review section or the comment section. And it'll take just 60 seconds out of your day, but what you share could not only save you, but could also save someone's life. Okay, that does it for this week. My name's Tim Westbrook. I hope that our paths cross again in the next episode of I Love Being Sober. Dr. Joan Rosenberg, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our time today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Tim. Me too.